Hello friends! In the first video about power armor, I talked about the models used in the Galactic Republic and the Galactic Empire, but it wasn't just the soldiers of the galaxy's superpowers who could wear power armor. If you like what I do, please like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. You can also help by donating on Patreon. Links will be in the description. So, in this video, I want to talk about the types of power armor that were almost freely available for purchase. I say almost because on some planets, owning a set of power armor could be considered equivalent to owning a personal tank. Imagine if a citizen wearing such armor started to riot. I'll start with a description of the magnificent AV series power armor manufactured by GTU Corporation. The manufacturer released 3 versions of power armor at once: AV-1S Scout Armor, AV-1C Combat Armor, and AV-1A Assault Armor. They went on sale several decades before the Clone Wars. Let's start with the lightest version. The AV-1S power armor was designed for reconnaissance and search and rescue missions. However, the armor's protective capabilities made it an excellent choice for the battlefield if the enemy did not have powerful blasters. The armor was a durable yet flexible exoskeleton to which armor plates were attached. The armor was completely sealed, and the built-in life support and climate control system allowed the wearer to remain in hostile environments and areas of chemical contamination for several hours. The servo drives, life support system, and electronics of the armor were powered by 3 standard removable energy cells. A full charge of the energy cells was sufficient for 36 hours of continuous operation. It was impossible to replace the energy cells independently without leaving the armor, as they were located in a block on the back. However, even with depleted power cells and non-functioning servo drives, it was possible to continue operating using the AV-1S as a conventional armored suit. This was made possible by the relatively low weight of the armor, only 18 kilograms. The process of putting on the armor was quite simple and took no more than 5 minutes without assistance. The AV-1S could be removed in a minute and a half. Thanks to the built-in repulsor, the soldier could fly at a speed of 10 meters per second at an altitude of up to 1,000 meters. The repulsor quickly depleted the battery supply and was not recommended for frequent use. Unlike most models of power armor, possession of the AV-1S was not considered illegal in many worlds. However, when attempting to purchase it, the law enforcement agencies of many planetary governments required the provision of an appropriate license. In the final years of the Republic, during the dawn of the Empire, the Galactic Civil War, and the New Republic, the AV-1S power armor was widely used by legal paramilitary organizations and security forces of large companies and corporations. Rebels also sometimes used this armor. Now let's talk about AV-1C combat armor. Unlike the AV-1S, this power armor was originally positioned as battlefield armor. It was designed for soldiers on the front lines and assault units, especially in urban and mountainous terrain. Despite significant external differences from the reconnaissance version, the AV-1C has a similar exoskeleton design, on which thick armor plates and additional equipment are mounted. The soldier's head is protected by a sealed, rounded helmet with a large glass area. The latter is considered a serious drawback, as a well-aimed shot to the head from a blaster rifle, a very powerful blaster pistol, or a large-caliber firearm can instantly kill or seriously injure a soldier. At the same time, all other parts of the armor suit successfully withstood hits from close range from even high-powered army blaster rifles. A soldier could successfully survive several direct hits that would otherwise have made a fist-sized hole in his body. This power armor could be penetrated by a shot from a mounted blaster, such as an E-Web or an anti-tank grenade launcher. The helmet has a built-in guidance system that displays target data on the soldier's visor, a short-range comlink, a passive night vision device, and built-in macro binoculars that can be used as an alternative to an optical sight when firing at long ranges. The weapon control system could be linked to 2 weapons. If the blaster had a camera or an electronic optical sight with an image transmission function, it was possible to fire from behind cover, sticking only the barrel of the weapon out. In this case, the image was displayed on the helmet visor along with the aiming point. This also allowed for accurate firing from the hip. The armor hardly restricted movement. It was possible to run, jump, fight hand-to-hand, and much more until the batteries ran out. A full charge of energy cells was enough for 24 hours of continuous operation. Even after the charge was depleted, it was possible to continue fighting, as the weight of this power armor was only 25 kilograms. During the dawn of the Empire, the Galactic Civil War, and the New Republic, AV-1C power armor could be found in the arsenals of wealthy mercenary organizations used by bounty hunters, and sometimes in the arsenals of elite army units of a number of planetary governments. The cost of the armor prevented poorer states from equipping their armies of thousands with it, but it was possible to equip several hundred soldiers. Even the Galactic Empire did not have the budget to equip all of its soldiers with power armor. Now let's talk about the heavy AV-1A assault armor. It weighed a lot, 60 kilograms. It was also expensive, 50,000 credits. For that kind of money, you could buy a simple fighter or a cool business class speeder. Like the previous version, this power armor was designed for combat against enemy infantry and light armored vehicles in all types of combat situations. The AV-1A's capabilities were particularly evident during assault operations in urban areas and mountains, when storming fortifications and boarding spaceships. Its thick armor, which was as strong as the armored power suits of the Imperial Space Infantry, allowed it to withstand even heavy blaster fire at point-blank range. Shrapnel, bullets, and light blasters were no match for the AV-1A. The only thing that could guarantee to stop a soldier in such armor was an anti-tank grenade launcher, which would be impractical to use in the narrow corridors of a starship. Servomotors increased the operator's physical strength several times over and made him deadly in close combat. It was easy to punch a hole in a wall, break a lock, and even break a Wookiee's spine. At the same time, the armor hardly restricted the soldier's mobility. Powerful servo drives required a lot of energy. 6 standard energy cells were used to power all elements of the AV-1A design, which was only enough for 12 hours of continuous operation. Replacing the batteries in combat conditions required outside assistance. The low degree of autonomy and the inability to fight with depleted power cells limited the tactical capabilities of the AV-1A armored unit during prolonged combat operations. However, assault operations and boarding rarely lasted more than a few hours. All the electronic components were copied from the previous version. The AV-1A cost as much as a light fighter, required professional maintenance, and a well-trained soldier operator. These circumstances made the AV-1A a very rare sight in non-state armed forces. Only highly professional and very wealthy mercenary organizations could afford to purchase the AV-1A. In addition, during the Republican period, some army units of the states that were part of the Republic and independent states wore such armor. During the Imperial period, there were also planets whose authorities had the money and legal opportunity to purchase such armor. The AV-1A was considered one of the best options for power armor available on the open market. In addition to these 3 models, cheaper power armor was also available for purchase. This armor for the poor was called the PX-11 Battlement. It was created by the well-known company Arakid Industries. The armor cost only 9,000 credits. It was a typical example of power armor from the late Republic and Empire periods. The PX-11 was an armor suit made of heavy Durasteel armor plates with a rigid exoskeleton, supplemented by synthetic muscles and nanohydraulics. The battlement was equipped with an autonomous life support system that allowed it to survive in a vacuum or toxic atmosphere for 1 hour. The helmet had a built-in comlink, as well as optical and acoustic sensors that improved vision and hearing. The wearer of the power armor could easily navigate in darkness, smoke, and other conditions that impaired visibility. The suit's power system was designed for 12 hours of continuous use. The RH-11 did not have a built-in targeting system or other expensive technologies. Now let's take a look at the light power armor of this period. Let's start with the Juggernaut 510 combat power armor created by the Cazell Corporation. They created their power armor specifically for mercenaries and armies of small and poor planetary states. It was intended to be worn by heavy infantry soldiers. Therefore, they tried to make the armor strong but from inexpensive materials. The lightweight and flexible exoskeleton was mounted with protective elements made of plastoid and Durasteel, capable of withstanding direct hits from army-grade blaster rifles, large-caliber bullets, grenade fragments, and artillery shells. However, it was not worth getting cocky. After all, the armor plates on the Juggernaut 510 were not very thick, and it was not advisable to turn your back on the enemy, as the power supply on the back could be disabled with a single hit from even a light blaster. On the left shoulder of the armor suit, there is a mount for installing a blaster, grenade launcher, or rocket launcher with anti-tank guided missiles. The most interesting feature was the MFTAS system built into the helmet. This was a set of sensors combined with a fire control system that made it easier to fire accurately in poor visibility and at long ranges. Incidentally, MFTAS was also used in the helmets of all types of assault troops. In addition, the helmet had a built-in macro binocular, but the Juggernaut 510 also had its drawbacks. A weak exoskeleton and a rather cumbersome design restricted mobility. As a result, the Causal Corporation realized that the product was uncompetitive and production was halted. However, a few years later, the corporation's lead engineer, Sarvel Tal Oldra, fled with all the blueprints to the corporate sector. There, he refined the Juggernaut 510 and began mass production. Local mercenaries were delighted. At the same time, engineers from the well-known weapons corporation Soro Sub presented their version of light power armor, designated NLZ-511 and nicknamed Dragon. Initially, the armor was created for the planetary defense forces of Solust, but later it was sold to anyone who wanted it. The Dragon Power Armor was a lightweight exoskeleton with thin armor plates mounted on it. Only in some places was the armor really thick and could withstand a serious blaster hit. It is not entirely clear why an exoskeleton was used at all. The reason for such weak protection was the inability of Soro Sub engineers to create a high-quality power system and the lack of materials for the production of strong exoskeletons. Moreover, the Celestians did not have access to the technology for creating artificial muscles. The problem with protection was partially compensated for by the MFTAS system. Another advantage was that the Dragon Power Armor was completely sealed, had higher quality filters, and could be equipped with built-in and mounted weapons and equipment. In the basic version, it had a light blaster cannon on the right shoulder and a flamethrower on the left arm. Let's move on. The Mon Calamari are known to all as shipbuilders, but few know that this aquatic people also invented and produced various types of firearms and armor. The talented engineer Elon Gallier created the lightweight Leviathan power armor. This is a rare case of power armor designed for combat both on the surface and underwater. Gallier created the Leviathan specifically for the Rebel Alliance's combat divers, who were very fond of it. Initially, the armor was adapted for the unique physiology of the Mon Calamari race. However, variants were also produced for other humanoid races, but Imperial intelligence tracked down Gallier and, after a short trial, sent the inventor to prison. The combat divers of the Rebel Alliance and the New Republic received a small number of power armor suits, allowing them to fight confidently underwater against Imperial combat divers. The Leviathan armor's fire control system could interact with most types of small arms and also allowed the use of various attachments. Most often, the rebels went into battle armed with FC-1 flechette rifles and mini torpedo launchers. Let's continue with the topic of rebels. Let's take a look at another model created by engineers from the planet Nubia specifically for the rebels. The armor was named Kavdan, after a dangerous local predator. In general, it was typical light power armor. It is interesting primarily for its modularity, which allowed for the installation of a wide variety of attachments and built-in weapons. This same modularity made it possible to adapt the armor to the physiology of most humanoid races. The armor was completely airtight and had a climate control system, allowing it to be used for several hours in harsh weather conditions in open space in areas contaminated with radiation or exposed to chemical weapons. In short, it was a good product and not too expensive. Supporters of the rebels sold it to the Alliance at a discount. Everyone else could buy Kavdan for a minimum of 13,500 credits. Corellian engineers delighted the galaxy with another inexpensive power armor. This power armor cost no more than 10,000 credits and weighed 18 kilograms. The armor's exoskeleton was rigid, but it did not restrict the soldiers' mobility. Professional mercenaries and soldiers of some armies whose governments cared about their survival on the battlefield really liked this armor. Bounty hunters also appreciated the inexpensive and fairly durable power armor. This model was not equipped with any auxiliary technologies, just armor, just an exoskeleton. Although Corellian power armor was significantly more primitive than the PX-11 battlement, demand for it did not decline from the time of the Clone Wars until 8 years after the Battle of Yavin. Then other models pushed it out of the market. Now I will tell you about a scientist from Techno Union who was highly respected in his time. His name was Kul Taska. Later he became a bloodthirsty mercenary, but before he started killing everyone for money, Kul Taska specialized in creating combat droids. Once, during an experiment, something went wrong with his protective suit. The fact is that all members of this race are forced to wear spacesuits outside their home planet. Without a spacesuit, a Skakoans who breathes air will die in a couple of minutes. Kultaska survived, but suffered many serious injuries. His disfigurement forced him to leave the Techno-Union and pursue his own independent research in robotics. Thanks to his outstanding technical knowledge, Kultaska created an impressive power suit. Instead of his right arm, he installed a 4-barrel blaster cannon. Rocket launchers were placed on his shoulder. Kultaska's power armor even had a built-in protective field generator, turning the already dangerous Skakoan into a veritable walking tank. The armor also had a built-in repulsor projector and a miniature reactor, allowing it to fly at high speeds and with great maneuverability. Kultaska's armor had only one drawback: low reliability. The Skakoan had installed too many different systems and weapons, which periodically conflicted with each other. When the Clone Wars began, Count Dooku hired Kultaska to carry out special assignments and provided the mercenary with several ships and thousands of combat droids. Kultaska could have fought the entire war carrying out Dooku's orders if he hadn't encountered Anakin Skywalker and Ahsoka Tano. With the help of Cad Bane, the Jedi killed the Skakoan on the planet Bepor a few months after the start of the Clone Wars. As you can see, there was a wide variety of power armor in Star Wars. All heavy spacesuits had an exoskeleton, which was essentially also power armor. It was strong but not designed for combat. Exoskeletons were used almost everywhere. Builders, loaders, disabled people. Many people wore exoskeletons for work and medical purposes. The military also used exoskeletons, both to increase the strength and mobility of soldiers, and to equip the exoskeleton with armor plates and various electronics, turning it into power armor. It is worth clarifying that in these two parts, I only talked about power armor that was produced and used in the last decades of the Old Republic, during the Empire, and up until the Yuuzhan Vong invasion. Of course, power armor existed in the Star Wars universe thousands of years before that, but perhaps more on that another time. That's all for now. Thank you to everyone who watched the video. Don't forget to leave a comment, like the video, and subscribe to the channel. You can also help by donating on Patreon, the link to which will be in the description. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.